welcome to the Tom Bilyeu Show live, and happy Monday, by the way. I hope you guys had an incredibly delicious weekend. Mine was wonderful. Excited to see everybody, and excited to see that White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says that Trump is leaving all options on the table in Iran, including a draft for U.S. soldiers. That would be insane, and the end of his presidency. Oil prices are all over the map as investors grapple with where the war in Iran is actually headed. 5 of the Iranian women's national soccer team are seeking asylum in Australia after their incredibly ballsy move to silently protest Iran. I don't know if you guys saw that. We'll be talking about that later. AI-related job eliminations continue apace at Amazon Video. And in the world of finance writ large, the numbers coming out of the jobs market are distressing, I will say. Another person departs a high-profile position at OpenAI due to AI safety concerns. There's a fun Venn diagram that hopefully we will get a chance to look at later. In a sign of things to come, human brain cells were grown and placed on a microchip and taught to play Doom in a week. This is getting wild. Reportedly, pro-Islam terrorists throw an IED into the crowd that thankfully malfunctions. It has been confirmed that it really was an explosive device that had some crazy explosive material inside of it. So pretty wild. We'll be looking at that as well. All right, Drew, oil prices are all over the place. People do not know what to make of this.
Maybe it's because the oil refinery is on fire, literally. If you could throw that up, Eric.
It's crazy.
This is crazy from Tehran. There's that image, and then there's the image coming down the highway. This looks like a world-ending movie. So no surprise that gas prices might be a little bit higher in the upcoming
This
days.
weekend, I spent more time verifying things that I have seen than literally any other time that I've ever engaged with social media. It really is getting incredibly difficult to parse out what is just naked propaganda. By the way, I'll remind everybody, propaganda on all sides. Your own government is lying to you. Foreign governments are certainly lying to you. Everybody thinks that they see the truth. I really try to be honest about the fact I cannot see the future. So I will do my best to lay out what I think, where I think things are right now. But it certainly will all change. And then because of AI, it's like so much of this stuff, it looks real, but it's like, I have a feeling if I fact check this one that it's not going to be real. And then if we layer on top of that, you've got AI being systematically trained to have a bias. It's like it's tough out in these streets, Drew. I'm not gonna lie. These AI-laden streets are not for the faint of heart. It is getting
speaking
very
of streets, if you went to the gas pump, it is crazy. I was in Phoenix this weekend, and literally gas prices are $1 higher, than it was 6 weeks ago.
8 days. 8 days.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. I was just there, and I was like, oh, I could find something for $2.90, $2.75, $4.15. I'm just like, am I in LA? Well, how did this happen? Instantly. So kind of break it down to us. We're seeing a lot of these images, things on fire and stuff like that. But what is actually happening on our level, and what's causing this blowback? Yeah.
The thing to look at is that oil prices have become insanely volatile. It's the wild swings both up and down that give you a clue to what's really going on. Oil prices have gone up 35% in just 8 days. And Daniel Yergin, the guy who wrote literally the definitive history of oil, said this weekend that the world is looking at the biggest disruption in oil production in history. Okay, again, this is not like a random pundit. This is the guy that actually wrote the book on oil disruptions throughout history. And he's just saying this is completely unprecedented. That reality caused the WTI, which is basically the benchmark that you evaluate the cost of crude through. It caused that to spike to $119 a barrel, but it then crashed nearly $20 in the exact same trading session. The market just cannot make up its mind right now as to what is actually happening. This is everybody trying to look into the future. This is why I say that the markets are a casino. People are gambling, and they're trying to reach into the future, figure out exactly what's going to happen. And they're coming up completely confused, which is pretty befitting of the situation in Iran, to be honest. We're going to talk more about that later. I don't know that we can bank on the propaganda that we're receiving from our own government painting a clear picture, or an accurate picture, I should say, about what the sentiment is on the street. I think it's far more divided, which means that this could go on for far longer. We'll see. To give you guys a sense of the scope of the disruption, the Iranian Revolution back in the 70s cut 5.5 million barrels of oil a day. The 1973 oil embargo, which was like the oh my God moment of oil, cut 4.5 million barrels per day. The Iraq-Kuwait war cut 4.3 million barrels per day. The current Strait of Hormuz closure has cut roughly 20 million barrels per day. Help! Yeah, this is much, much bigger than the disruptions that we've faced historically. So this isn't like, 20% bigger. You're talking 4 to 5 times the size of the disruption. Now, what is causing the trigger of the pullback in the markets? The report that the G7 finance ministers are going to be holding an emergency talk this morning to coordinate a release of strategic petroleum reserves through the International Energy Agency. So people are like, okay, they're going to release the reserves. And based on that, the market immediately sold the headline. Prices dropped nearly $20 off the intraday high. Now, this is a sign that the market is so starved for good news that an announcement of a potential meeting moved the price by 15%. So that's markets doing what markets do. I would not take that as a sign of what the reality is on the ground. Now add the top 5 historical oil shocks together and you get roughly 20 million barrels per day. We've got that much in just 8 days. That's where you're actually at. Now, does that mean that this can't unwind quickly? No, it doesn't. There's supposedly an emergency meeting that Trump is going to be having, I think, today at just before 5 p.m. Eastern time. People are predicting that what he's going to be announcing is a ceasefire. We'll see. That is rumor. That is conjecture. So completely unknown right now. But the messaging around all of this is creating these huge ripples in the markets. The thing to take away from that is that markets are skittish. Markets are super reactive. Anything that happens in like short-term periods is traders playing a totally different game than the way that I highly encourage all of you guys to think about this, which is long-term, very non-reactive, have a strategy, let it play out. One thing that I remind myself when we hear about all these historic pullbacks from somebody like Warren Buffett, and they're sitting on all this cash, remember they're sitting on the cash so they can redeploy it when things become cheap. So if you don't have an extraordinarily detailed map of what cheap looks like per company, don't try to take what Buffett is doing as a signal of what you should be doing. They are playing a totally different game that has everything to do with reading a gazillion quarterly reports and having mapped out, okay, this company at this price is a deal, this company at that price is a deal. And if you don't have that kind of thing, you should be thinking about index funds and set and forget, thinking in years movements and not the kind of day trading stuff that you're going to read about or hear about all this stuff. All right, the global reserve response sounds reassuring to many, but I really wouldn't read it that way, not at this scale. OPEC spare capacity sits at roughly 4 to 5 million barrels per day. Strategic reserves, though, are a bridge. They are absolutely not a long-term solution. They buy you days, not months, and there's only going to be so much that's put away in storage. So be thoughtful about how you read that situation. Iraq has already cut production by a reported 60% because it physically has run out of storage space because they can't export anything with the Strait of Hormuz closed. Kuwait has also cut. Saudi Arabia has cut. And these cuts are going to echo for a while, especially since we have no idea when the strait will open up again. Asian markets are already pricing in this reality. South Korea, which is just getting battered by all of this. The KOSPI, KOSPI, they triggered a circuit breaker this morning, which means they stopped trading because people were freaking out. Japan's Nikkei fell over 6%. U.S. futures are also deep in the red. So the G7 meeting might steady the next 48 hours, but it is not going to change the underlying math, which is that if you don't open the strait again, you've got problems. And right now, the strait is still closed, and thus the problem is growing bigger by the day with only question marks, as far as I can tell, on the horizon. We just don't know when this is going to end. So all eyes on Trump's announcement later today, which could be totally unrelated or could be him saying that we've reached some kind of pause in the fighting. I very much doubt that he's going to say that we're ending the aggression, just pausing. That's a guess. We'll see.
The messaging seems to be out on the Republican side. This is some of the talking points we heard on the news cast over this weekend.
Short-term pain?
Short-term pain. Oh my goodness. Hit the play for me, Eric.
These guys are hilarious. All right, here's the good news. So we're having technical problems, but that's okay. I can tell you, it's like a montage of everybody going, short-term pain, long-term gain, short-term pain, long-term gain. It's short-term pain, Drew. Long-term gain.
So is that gonna be enough? Because right now,
first of all, let's just focus. This is like a DLC that downloaded in the background. It's like you roll up, you plug into the game, and all of a sudden it's like the NPCs have like glitched out their lines of dialogue. It's like, please, guys, like this kind of scripted stuff drives me absolutely bananas. So yeah, is this short-term pain for long-term gain? We don't know. This could be short-term pain for long-term pain. It could be short-term pain for the world just got better for everybody. Like if you listen to, and this is somebody that I respect tremendously. If you listen to Victor Davis Hanson, it's like, hey, taking out this regime, best thing you could do ever. You guys don't understand the axis of evil that's running between China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. Like this is beginning to break that up. Trump is running a master stroke. Cuba's going to be next. Like we're literally doing the thing that America's been trying to do since the 40s, which is effectively isolate all the communist countries, push them out of our hemisphere. Man, good days are a-coming. And I'm just like, bro, there's a lot of assumptions in that, Mr. Victor Davis Hanson, and nobody knows better than you that things can break badly in a war. So I think we're counting a lot of chickens before they hatch here. So this one, honestly, if you were to say, okay, put a flag right here, if this ends up going well, it's going to be that meme like, oh, they had us in the beginning. Because right now this looks like you've just destabilized things way too much. So man, if he were like, listen, we are not sending troops into Iran, like that's completely a no-go situation for me. We are going to be able to deal with the close of the Strait of Hormuz in the following way. And yes, like there is going to be this temporary issue that we're going to have to deal with in terms of, you're going to have 2 to 4 weeks of the instability as we line up the insurance and we line up the military escorts, but like you don't have to worry about a bunch of ships getting blown up. We're gonna get this all back. And then if I saw that Iran was like, call it 80-20 in one direction of like, yes, we want a new regime, this is terrible, we're not willing to suffer this anymore, I'd be like, okay. But that is not what I see. What I see are our historic allies being like, I don't really want to get involved in this. And then when their bases get bombed, they're like, all right, you can have like a couple bits and bobs. Maybe the France thing is real and they're sending the only non-US nuclear powered carrier into the region. That's something. And I want to see what the rest of the Middle East does, the GCC countries. If they're like pro-America, down with Iran, then maybe there is enough will in the region to see this thing through. But this went from like, hey guys, don't worry, you saw what I did with Fordow, like quick lightning strike, you know what I'm about, I don't do boots on the ground, no new wars, et cetera, et cetera. And their messaging is now slowly trying to warm us up to, what do you mean? I never said that, wasn't me. Like all we do is war, what are you talking about? And so I'm like, hey, hold on. This is this incremental change in messaging, which by the way is brilliant. It works on humans every time, which is extraordinarily distressing. But if you just slowly like, no, hey, like you accepted that little bit, now take a little bit more, now take a little bit more. They're running that playbook. And because the playbook is as obvious as the DLC download of the new NPC dialogue around short-term pain for long-term gain, it's like, uh-oh, I see where this is headed. So,
but that's the interesting thing is you put me on land, man. And ever since watching that show, I feel like I know all about oil economies now. But once oil hits $100 a barrel, it doesn't just affect gas prices. It like hits all these other points in the economy. So short-term pain, long-term gain is like, okay, yeah, it's cool. You might have to pay a little bit more for gas. But if this goes up a week, 2 weeks, now everybody has changed prices. The grocery store changes. There's all these ripple effects into the economy. So What's that look like in regard to not just oil prices, but the larger macro?
I'm so glad you brought this up, because this is the thing that people just are not paying attention to. There is a massive knock-on effect to the war in Iran that could be far bigger than just oil prices. Yes, 20 million barrels of crude per day has stopped moving through the Strait of Hormuz, and that is a very big deal. But oil is best thought of as the first domino. The subsequent dominoes that may be falling are more immediately problematic. 92% of the world's sulfur, for instance, which nobody thinks about because it's not sexy or interesting, but that comes from refining oil and gas. Without sulfur, you can't make sulfuric acid. Without sulfuric acid, you can't extract copper or cobalt. Without copper or cobalt, you can't build transformers, EV batteries, or data centers, which are becoming more and more important by the day. And that cascade of problems starts accelerating the very moment that refining stops. And refining in several places has already begun to slow. That's not even to talk about the chips. So Qatar, which halted gas production after Iranian drone strikes hit its facilities, ships roughly 30% of Taiwan's liquefied natural gas through Hormuz. Analysts estimate Taiwan has already down to 11 days of reserves left. Yikes. TSMC, the company that manufactures 90% of the world's advanced semiconductors, draws nearly, this is psychotic, 9% of Taiwan's total electricity. Taiwan is a country. One company takes almost 10% of the entire country's total electricity. So if they're not getting gas, it means they don't have power. Given how much power they need, no power obviously means no chips. No chips means the components that run the majority of our modern way of life become hard to get. Remember COVID? Remember how quickly, even used cars were the hottest commodity ever? That's the kind of thing that we're going to be dealing with if this drags on. Then there's the single most important issue that we have to be talking about, which is food. Half of the humans alive today are only alive because of synthetic nitrogen fertilizer. It's a real stat. Roughly a third of the world's nitrogen fertilizer feedstock moves through the strait. Okay, that's what's known as a Haber-Bosch process. It turns energy that runs through the Strait of Hormuz into food, so via sulfur. So you've got sulfur, semiconductors, food, 3 civilizational supply chains running through one 21 nautical mile passage that is being shut down because ships can't get insurance due to the IRGC threatening to bomb them if they try to pass. Now, we're not in a doomsday scenario, at least not yet, but Trump has floated Navy escorts. France has dispatched its nuclear carrier. The strait is effectively closed due to insurance, not to a physical military blockade. That's good. Some ships are seeming to be able to get through by turning off their transponders and basically sneaking through at night. But every day that this holds, the cascade gets worse and is going to be not harder to reverse, but it's going to take longer to reverse. And so that means that we'll be stuck with whatever the negative consequences are for longer. And when you start talking about food supply disruptions, now you get into really dark territory.
So we have oil on one side, we have food disruptions, possible down markets in manufacturing, chips, TSM like that. And for some reason, I think we're becoming the Israel of the Israel-Palestine media war a couple months ago.
What do you mean by that?
We are losing the media war when it comes to this, where the New York Times is reporting that new video evidence suggests that a U.S. missile was likely to hit the Iranian school that killed 175 people. Majority of them are children. It was Iran did it. No, that was Israel's missile. Now they kind of actually pulled up a video, and it seems like it was an American Tomahawk. And then that same image that we just showed with the oil refinery on fire, somebody retweeted it. Imagine these horrors, and genuinely believing the U.S. is there to help the Iranian people. So the same kind of chipping away at America's credibility is kind of what we seen happen a couple months ago with Gaza, Israel, after October 7th, where the media is now saying, why are we fighting this war? Why is America being the bully? America needs to relax. It's only America. It's only America. So you have the external pressure that why are we even in this war? It's not justified. You're being a warmonger. And we have the pockets pressure where gas prices are high, food prices are high. it seems like I don't know how the administration is going to spin their way out of this, because even with the growth thing, is at least we can point to AI and be like, they're going to save us, but it seems like we're getting hit on all sides when it comes to this war.
If he doesn't win, it's game over for Trump. That's the reality of what's going on in Iran. He is running an all or nothing strategy. I've been talking about this for a while with his other strategies. Everything he does, if it works, then it will be financially beneficial to the US. It will alienate our allies. It can cause huge problems on the world stage in the long run, but it will be economically beneficial to the US. That is the current strategy in Iran. If we can take over Iran, remember, all of this stuff, even though I will often not bring this up, it is always in the back of my mind. This game is largely about China. And so understanding that you are caught in Thucydides' trap, you've got a rising China, a declining US, and you've got a populist moment that brought to power a person like Trump, who is like, there is one way to gain an advantage for the US for at least another generation. Of course, he's not thinking like that. He's thinking it's going to perpetually extend America's dominance forever and ever. But the reality is that the strategy that he sees is this big all or nothing. We go in, we use the remaining power that we have to bully enough countries to get on board with us such that we can diminish the connectivity of China so that it is unable to continue its rise. Because its rise counts on a lot of the US economy, first of all, and by not having access to the US economy the way that they have historically, that forces them to basically dump cheap goods into their own economy, into surrounding economies, which will then cause them to backlash against China in the same way that we are now, because it hollows out your own ability to manufacture. And everybody understands that in a time like this, having your supply chains offloaded to somebody else that could potentially be an adversary is bad news. So the US is trying to isolate China, is trying to disrupt this interconnected web. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea being the four major players. The attack on the US dollar, trying to disrupt that as well. Obviously, from where I'm sitting, the physics of the situation is such that this comes back to central banking. So I will certainly forgive anybody that thinks that it's shadow bankers that are doing all of this. Whether they're actively involved in any of these discussions or they're simply systemically important to the incentive structure that makes this the actual play, this really is where we're at. So Trump is going, cool, I'm going to take out Venezuela. That's cheap oil for China. That's a knock against them. Then I'm going to take out Iran, which is another source, a larger source, in fact, of cheap oil for China. And so if he can do that, not only does he start to remove China more from South America, which is going to be very important as they were trying to leverage that to build the gold corridor, to have one of its main assaults on the US dollar in terms of its supremacy, but also just keeping people out of your backyard is a very smart play as the world fractures and you've got multiple powers now instead of just the one US power. Then on top of that, you absolutely have the Israel of it all. So you have an ally in the region that wants to make sure that their investments in terms of dollars into the US political system pay off in terms of getting us to help. And then I still, listen, history may prove me wrong, but I still believe that the Freudian slip or the honest answer that Rubio gave about us making a move when we did because we knew that Iran was going to be struck by Israel. And so we wanted to get in there first. It's so wild. I still believe that that was accurate. Hey, that's one guy's feelings. We will see. Rubio, who I think is extraordinarily good at his job, just really wants us to believe that that isn't how things played out and it was taken out of context. I've seen the context. It still feels pretty real to me. So anyway, I think that that's all a real part of the equation. So you put all of that together, and if Trump pulls it off and we are able to isolate China, we deal with the costs of oil going up now, only to come back down as the U.S. is hoping, obviously, to get a friendly regime in place in Iran. And if they do that, we're able to take advantage of putting that oil under U.S. sanctions and getting better deals for us. Then all of this works out well in the end, if he pulls that off. If he puts boots on the ground and you're getting even dozens of Americans killed, yo, if this is dragging on at the midterms, peace out. Homeboy is toasted cheese. Like, there's no way. Listen, I've been wrong before. So if somehow he's got boots on the ground and dozens of Americans are dying, or God forbid, hundreds of Americans are dying, or God, thousands of Americans are dying, and he gets reelected, that I will admit, I don't see that one coming. I'll update my mental model as reality forces me to do so, but whoa, would that surprise me. I just think the backlash is going to be swift if that is what actually ends up playing out. I think he is counting on something abrupt and aggressive in terms of a victory for the US. So I will again plant a flag for me to just check my own thinking against, because trust me, I do not overesteem my ability to be right about this stuff in the fullness of time. But the way that I'm thinking about it now is that Trump would leave Iran in chaos before he would put substantive boots on the ground. He might do like special operations stuff. Like they're talking about taking over a distribution hub that's like an island. That I could see them actually doing and being able to fortify. But like boots on the ground in mainland Iran, I would be shocked. So we'll see how it plays out.
It's interesting that you brought up the China of it all. I seen the report that allegedly China is recording the U.S. war and kind of keeping track. So to this point of Thucydides' trap, we're kind of showing our hand on what happens when we do an all-out offensive, what happens when somebody punches us back, what happens when we mobilize, which one of our allies are actually dependable, which one of these allies are we actually running operations from. So it's kind of like scouting the other team before the Super Bowl. Like you're kind of seeing what they would do. Like, okay, I see a couple weaknesses there. Okay, let's see how their reload time is and stuff like that. So you're starting to kind of see the strategy from a world perspective. I got a lot of pushback in the chat from me saying that we're kind of acting like Israel, where we're being a bully. We didn't really bomb the school and things like that. Trump logic aside, what do you think is actually happening in this war? And how do you think it actually turns out? I know you're not a crystal ball reader. I know you're not a military strategist, nothing like that, but lay it out to us. Do you think that this is something that we can come back from and it's just going to be a blip in the map of history?
Well, we can definitely come back from it. All anybody ever cares about in the fullness of time is, did you make my life better economically or not? And I know that even my community just does not like that blanket statement. But I'm aghast at all of you. I'm going to be completely honest. I do not know how you look at the world and continue to walk away thinking that this is anything other than economics. Even with like all of the religious element to this, which is very real and gives people motives and all of that, you're not going to be able to get even religious fighters to fight unless you were supporting them economically. This is why everybody has choked out Iran historically by denying them money. You're not going to see people in Hezbollah or Hamas, if they feel that they've been abandoned economically, keep going. Like I don't know what people are gluing together when they look at the world and think, economics doesn't matter. Economics isn't the foundation of this. This is religious. If that were true, then people would just keep fighting with or without money. But they tend not to do that because they have to buy weapons, and the world just grinds to a halt when you find someone in your supply chain who's like, yeah, God's great and all, but P.S., by the way, where the fuck is my money? And then it just all stops. So anyway, I'm looking at this from an economic standpoint. And when you look at this from an economic standpoint, I get the incentive for the U.S. to get in there to do its thing in terms of trying to block out China, get control of oil. It's all there. Now, how this is going to play out is there is a key piece of information that I need that I don't have. And I think that Iran is far more divided than people want to believe. We want to believe, and we're certainly being propagandized to believe, that like 98% of Iranians want to go back to a 1978 Iran before the revolution. And I don't think that that's going to end up being true. So I don't think that you get 47 years of this kind of theocratic rule without raising people that's all they know. You've got at least 2 generations of people that did not experience in any way, shape, or form the pre-Islamic Revolution Iran to be able to say that was better. So this is all they know. So while I will certainly say it seems self-evident that Iran is divided, in that you've got people on the streets that were willing to die. They were protesting in massive numbers. But the question is, now that we see they have the opportunity to like break out again and to really stand for something and really like take the streets back. You're seeing pockets of it, but you're not seeing like a big concentrated effort. You're seeing, and again, I don't know how big this is. I don't know if it's 2%. I don't know if it's 20%. I don't know if it's 50%. I have no idea. But you're seeing people on the other side that are coming out and waving their flags when they announce the new Ayatollah. So I don't know. And I need an answer to that question before I know how all of this is going to play out. Because if we try to top down change Iran, I think we are in for a world of hurt. If we loosen the military infrastructure such that there is a bottom-up uprising, then you've got a shot. And I just don't know which way that's going to break.
Yeah, I'm showing the footage right now of people out in the streets, 3:30 in the morning, honking horns and celebrating. It seems like they didn't take it as hard as we thought they would take it.
Here's the thing. Think about America.
Yeah.
If I show you Minnesota, you're going to look at that and be like, yo, these guys are against their government. But if I show you Florida, you're going to be like, yo, these guys support their government.
That's a very good point.
And so I have a feeling Iran is the same. Remember, Iran is enormous. It is enormous. It is modern. It isn't like, so I used to have an Iranian employee, lived here in the US, but he like accent, the whole nine. Did you ever meet Farhad? So he was always like, Tom, you don't understand. Like Iran is beautiful. It's lush. It's green. He's like, you guys have this propaganda that Iran is just like a big desert. And he's like, that's not what Iran is. Now listen, Iran has desert, but it isn't just like one big pile of sand. And he's like, I think that's what Americans think Iran is. He's like, it's not that. And so when you see it and you see that, oh yeah, like any country, there are people that are for the current regime, which is exactly how they stay in place. And then there are people that are against it. I'm just not on the ground. I have no sense of like, what are the proportions? Even in the US, and I am on the ground, it's hard to tell like, where is the silent majority and all that that's supposedly in the middle. It's like, if you want to blow up on YouTube, pick a side. So that tells me something. Tells me that like we're pulling farther apart. If you want to get elected to political office, pick a side. So it's like I'm not seeing a lot of evidence that there's certainly mobilization in the middle. So people do seem far more animated in the extremes. And so it's tough to get a sense of, okay, which side is bigger? And without knowing that, it will be very difficult. The only thing I will tell you is Iran is not America. You're not going to bomb them into looking like America. And so what is that going to become as they rebuild their own structures and start moving forward? I don't know. We tried turning Afghanistan into America. That didn't work. We tried turning Vietnam into America. That didn't work. We tried turning Iraq into America. That didn't work. So it's like we have to understand culture matters a lot. We're going to get into some of the like issues that America's having importing people that have different value systems, namely Islam. That's just going to become a bigger and bigger thing. It matters. Culture matters. You don't even have to say one is better than the other to say that everybody inside their own culture thinks theirs is better. And that dynamic of I think mine is better, you think yours is better, empirical truth is either impossible to ascertain or nobody cares. And so now it's just two worlds colliding. And if Iran has two worlds colliding, I need to know which one is bigger to predict what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah. And what's actually happening, I'm pulling up the Australian Iranian women's football team drama that's happening. You would think that this isn't happening while some people are saying Iranian people are fine. They didn't need liberation. The women will love it there. And then you're hearing these stories that directly contradict. So to your point of starting the show, there's so much media spin that if you look at one section of one city block, it's like, oh, they love it. They want Ayatollah Part 2. They hate America, death to America. And then you look over here where literally there's women internationally protesting, carrying the backs of their civil rights, trying to make like legitimate change. So it's hard to kind of parse those two. But I'm going to be honest, I'm at the headline level with the Australian thing. If you could catch us up really quick on what's going on out there.
The Australian soccer team is utterly fascinating. It is in one moment explaining exactly what's going on in Iran itself because they're divided. Even the team is not coming up with a unified response. But if you guys don't know the background of this story, after an Iranian soccer player flashed the international symbol for help, so they were coming out of a soccer tournament. They at one point had stood in silence. It was really an incredible move. During their own national anthem, they stood in silence at some point, I think a couple games ago. And then there was a ton of pressure for them to, hey, the next time the cameras are on you, you better be like singing along to the national anthem, because if you don't, we're going to hurt your family back here. So it was like, okay, what's really going on? And then they lost and were removed from the tournament while in Australia. And one of the players, at least one of the players, flashed that international symbol for help. 200 Iranian supporters in Australia swarmed the team's bus to stop them from getting shipped off to the regime that had promised to treat them like wartime traitors. This was on their national TV, obviously was a big deal. And so it was known that they were going to get some sort of harsh penalty when they returned. And it is a very big question in terms of how this is all going to play out. So you've got 5 of the members of the Iranian national women's team that is now seeking asylum in Australia, but the rest of the team is preparing to go back home. And the coach has said that they're eager to return home. So the question is, how did you get all of them to remain silent? Did they all want to do that? Did they feel a tremendous amount of pressure from like a team captain or something? And so they wanted to, do their part to show solidarity with the team? Or is it as straightforward as they had their moment, it looked like things were going one way, and they felt this tremendous wave of optimism, and then the threats start rolling in, and all of a sudden you realize, maybe the regime is not as weak as we thought or as we had hoped, and so now they're just worried about what's going to happen to their family, and so it's like they know if they don't go back, that something bad is going to happen to their family. I don't know any of the specifics, and I don't think anybody does, about the 5 people that have chosen to stay behind. But if the 5 people that have chosen to stay behind, for instance, are people that have little to no family back there, or they have family that are ultra militant about wanting a regime change and are willing to suffer whatever consequences come their way, that tells a very different story. And so I don't know if this is a team where some people really do identify with Iran and they want to get back, and other people are feeling pressured, or other people really are like, I don't care what comes of this. There's no way that I'm going back to Iran. I want to see the regime change. So this is one of those, it's all happening in real time. But the fact that 5 of the players are seeking asylum lets you know that they were serious, that they probably really did flash that symbol. It's been verified by a bunch of different outlets. So while I was looking at the bus footage, I couldn't see clearly what they were seeing, but it has been verified. And to be honest, I don't even know. Do you know what the universal symbol for help is? Yeah, I mean, I was like, I know the universal symbol for choking, but like, yeah, I don't. I think there is though. There's one for like I'm being trafficked. What is it, Eric?
I think it's like this.
You grab your thumb.
Yeah, like.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I guess, God, I hope people haven't been flashing me for years, and I'm just like, hey, what's up?
He was just waving at me
because
he just waved so weird. What's wrong?
What that is. So we'll see how this one plays out, but it is a good reminder that it is right now impossible to ascertain exactly how divided Iran is. We don't know.
Nice. Speaking of Women's Day, yesterday was International Women's Day. Happy International Women's Day to everybody. It's kind of funny, though, that it was on spring forward and it was only 23 hours.
That's hilarious.
So that's
hilarious. Did you enjoy February 28 days Black History Month, Drew?
Yes, Black History Month is every day. I don't know why they gave us 28 days.
Oh, that's the take? You're Morgan Freeman?
Yeah, I'm no Black History Month.
Let's go. Because you want to see it deeply integrated into just normal history.
I feel like eventually we got to realize that these people that were been here 400 years, next to the Irish dudes that's been here 400 years, next to the Italian dudes that's been here 400 years, we're all Americans. And at one point in time, we got to kind of understand our contributions to each other.
Now, this is a random side note that I did not expect us to go into. There's a country song by a black guy. I don't know his name.
Boozy? The exhale was hilarious.
I just don't know. I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
But it is so good. I wonder if I still have it up on. And I was like, yeah, this is a guy that what I'll call sort of redneck culture is like, yeah, this is exactly what I grew up in. I don't know if he's recent to the area or if his family has, going back generation after generation after generation. It was like, this is my culture. I fucking love it.
I'm going to be honest. I went to a cowboy bar this weekend and I realized that Cowboys are the equivalent of like it's the white person's equivalent of like hood dudes because they spend a lot of money for their shoes. Equal, but instead of a chain, they have a really expensive belt buckles.
Yep.
You know, they get dripped out. They have press increase. It's the same thing. It's just you get really excited. You throw on a pair of good boots. You throw on a nice little belt buckle. That's the same dude that's throwing on a pair of J's and a chain.
Do you know that you're on an official thesis?
I feel like this is
There's like a whole book written about this. So Thomas Sowell talks about this, and he, God, I'm not going to get this exactly right, but it's so fascinating. It's worth me like swagging it, and then people can look it up. There is what we think of redneck culture actually comes from like it's somewhere in England, certainly the UK. So England, Ireland, North Ireland. I'm well aware Ireland's its own country. Whatever the region is, that got imported to the South of America, and like that culture, it's called like black rednecks, and oh God, somebody's gonna have to look it up. Yeah. But anyway, that is black culture is representative of that area back in the UK. It's utterly fascinating, and that there is so much overlap between what we would think of as redneck culture is actually what we also think of as black culture. Like they have the same root. It's utterly fascinating.
It's interesting.
Shout out to my man, Thomas Sowell. Like that guy has his finger on the craziest shit. Someone in chat must know what this is called, please.
We gotta look into it. But it's interesting that there's a lot of things there's more similarities and differences once you actually break down what the culture is. From the cars to I said, the outfits, the fits, the line dancing, everything. Okay, back to politics. Karen Levitt casually threw out on the table that she might be okay with doing drafts. Trump is leaving all his options open.
Mothers out there are worried that we're going to have a draft, that they're going to see their sons get in and daughters get involved in this.
Carolyn.
What do you want to say about the president's plans for troops on the ground? As we know, it's been largely an air campaign up until now.
It has been, and it will continue to be, and President Trump wisely does not remove options off of the table. I know a lot of politicians like to do that quickly, but the president, as commander-in-chief, wants to continue to assess the success of this military operation. It's not part of the current plan right now, but the president, again, wisely keeps his options on the table.
Wisely keeping his options on the table.
Yeah. Dude, so this one to me just feels like political suicide. So, yep. I mean, look, some people will just keep doubling down until they get that victory because they're at the table and it's like, well, I'm down $500,000 now. What's $1 million, Drew? And they just keep trying to dig themselves out of that hole. Now, I'm not saying that Trump is in a hole right now with Iran. I think it's too early to tell. But I think that the signs coming out for my money, like this is showing that it's got legs. So in terms of remaining in conflict where you do not get the settled down aspect that you want quickly, again, Trump could be today announcing, no, like we've worked something out. We'll see. But I think that would be him leaving Iran in its current state because you've just replaced the Ayatollah with his son. So it's like his son, who you just killed like half of his family members, including his wife, his mom, one of his kids. So it's like this guy is not going to be like, hey, everybody, let's hold hands. You know what? I just want to.
I'm ready to make.
I want to forgive. Like what happened, everybody. If we could just say, amen and love your neighbor. I don't think that's what's going to come out of this. So I would be very shocked that there would be stability that would come out of that announcement if he makes it. We'll see. So yeah. Telling the American people that you are not going to remove a draft, like there's a 1-to-1 with poll numbers going down on that. So we'll see. This is, it is very interesting to look at Trump as a transformational figure. Imagine having 100 years of distance from this moment and what this will look like, because at that point, it's just all outcomes. And so if this goes horribly awry, it's just like, what a moron. He was completely unhinged. This is what happens in a populist moment. You elect dictators and they fucking go nuts and they run about the world and it all falls apart. Or if it all works, you look back and go, ooh, America finally elected a president that wasn't afraid to take action. who did the hard thing to isolate China one of the few times. They were coming up in an era where 12 of the last 16 times that a rising superpower collided with an established superpower, they ended up in war. And yet Trump somehow was able to isolate China by systematically going after these different proxies, breaking their access to oil, forcing them to move all to solar. And you know what I mean? Like, you can see how it would break down, where you look back at it and go, whoa, actually a very impressive move. But if you looked at it, you would say, but what was it like on the ground at that time? Because everything is so uncertain. And that's where we're all trapped, which is we don't have the historical perspective to know which way this is going to go. But it still remains up in the air that, yeah, he could end up pulling this off. And pulling this off to me means he stays in power long enough to make this economically advantageous to the U.S., not that it will ever be morally justifiable. So, and I think that that's one of the things that people take away from me. And every now and then I am so interested in just fighting with the people in chat that I see every now and then. But unfortunately, that has not proven to be good TV. So I will resist. But yeah, I'm so curious to know what people's best take is, where this goes.
I'm gonna have to put your feet to the fire here.
Please,
too,
I love it.
Trump is doubling down. This is his Truth Social post. Great job by hardworking Scott Presler on Fox and Friends, talking about using the filibuster or chalking filibuster in order to pass the Save America Act, an 88% issue with all voters. It must be done immediately. It supersedes everything else, must go to the front of the line. I, as president, will not sign other bills until this is passed. I want to just pause right there for a second, because to your point, he's in the middle of the war. He has all these things working against him, and now he's not going to pass anything else until the Save Act. It seems like he's definitely pushing his chips all into the middle with this one.
Well, it's interesting. Yes, I would say his chips are way more all in Iran. Iran, from a political standpoint, is far scarier in terms of the Republican Party's future. This, I think, is one of the things that gets at the heart of your politicians are not working for you. In poll after poll after poll, American people want there to be ID for voting. Just full stop. They support it. It's 88. I've never heard that poll. Maybe it's changed. I've seen 84. And that takes into account Democrats and all that. I think it polls for Democrats in the upper 70s. So it's boys and girls, you've got to understand that the American people writ large, regardless of party affiliation, want you to protect voter integrity. Period. End of story. Simple as. It should be the easiest thing in the world. Now, whether Trump has the ability to just veto things that come across his desk or refuse to sign it, I don't know about the refuse to sign, but certainly presidents can veto legislation. So he does have, unless there's a supermajority, he does have a pretty big tool in his arsenal. And if this is the one that he's going to burn the political capital on, I get it. I am aghast that the Democrats are not getting behind something that their own voters want. I get them being obstinate about something that their voting bloc doesn't want. But when their voting bloc wants it, this is insane. And then it's it goes back to, I did a deep dive on what I think is really going on with elections. And I think that it is aggressively importing immigrants, and just a large population of the immigrants that were brought in, certainly over the last 4 years, were illegal immigrants, to boost the census, to give their party more control so that they can get a one-party state. And nobody should want a one-party state. I don't care what side you're on. You should not want your own party to be the only party. I don't know how else to say that. It will go into tyranny very rapidly. You will become parasitized by your own extreme wing. This is exactly what happens when there's only one party. So, boys and girls, please, for the love of God, figure that one out.
Yeah. I was going to go to the Mamdani poll, the demographics is destiny thing. This is the narrative that a lot of people are, pushing. Of course, you did the deep dive on it, that when you look at American-born New Yorkers, these are the people who they voted for. And then we look at foreign-born,
And for anybody not looking at your phone, basically Mamdani was far more popular among non-Americans, foreign-born, we should say, foreign-born New Yorkers, than he is with people that were born actually in New York. And it's a pretty fascinating breakdown.
Doubles the sport.
So, and remember that the census, it determines seats in Congress, and the census counts anybody living in the state. So it doesn't matter whether they're legal or illegal. None of that matters at all. And you've heard Mamdani talk multiple times about you can get access to these federal or these state dollars regardless of your immigration status, meaning illegal aliens can get access to these dollars. Now, that just doesn't work when you've got economic problems, which we have in spades, where you're deficit spending. The deficit spending is the very thing that is making it impossible for working and middle class Americans to get by. And then you look at the fact that illegal alien, now this is one, admittedly, I want to fact check this. This is one of those things that feels a little too right emotionally and not necessarily things that feel right emotionally rarely withstand like a lot of rigor. So I'm going to give you things that I've seen reported in graphs, and just keep in mind that these things can be manipulated or just be outright fabrications. But the graph that I was looking at this morning showed that illegal aliens are per household more likely to be on welfare of all kinds than Americans. Citizens. And so it goes illegals do the most, then immigrants, but legal, then natural born American citizens. So that like tier tells you everything about the growing animosity that you need to know between people that are actually paying taxes and then people that are not. Now, the tax thing gets complicated because in the short term, illegal aliens typically are a win because they will end up using somebody else's social security number. And so they'll be paying into a system, but not taking as much out of the system. But over time that flips and they end up drawing off of the system a lot more than they contribute. So it depends on, again, this is all in the deep dive. You can go check it out. I talk extensively about this stuff. But that's where this all goes crazy, is that people will point to, well, hold on a second, like in the immigrants are actually good for the tax base. Yes, for like, I don't know, it's 2 to 3 years or something like that. And then it flips. So
this illegal immigration is becoming a hot button issue. There was a reported attack over the weekend. Jake Lane, I just survived an assassination attempt by these 2 Muslim men. The homemade bomb they threw landed 3 feet in front of me. The detonator failed to ignite. Because God is on the throne of my life, we will never surrender to Islam. I did some grokking a little bit, and this person, I meme, therefore I am, they reported that they screamed Allahu Akbar and all these other things. There were some arrests. I haven't seen any official charges happen. This is all evolving, though, so there's more information can come out.
FBI, as far as I know, raided their houses, or one of their houses at least, this morning. So they're certainly taking it seriously.
Yeah.
What this ends up becoming, it's way too early to say at this point. So right now, the easy narrative that will need to be shored up over time is that you've got Jake Lang. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Jake Lang did a thing that I hate more than I know how to put into words, which is he rolled up with a fully baked pig, like a roasted pig, during Ramadan to make an asshole point about his stance. So when people say that this guy is racist, I'll be honest, he's certainly a dick. So you can't separate that out. Like, this is one of those things where I'm Captain Culture Matters, but when you do, yes, if you're looking at your phone, you will now see it. When you do stuff like this, like, you're just an asshole of epic proportions. I don't want anything to do with that. So fuck everything about that as a thing. And at the same time, I do think Americans need to stand up for American values. We have to decide what they are, be able to say them out loud, and then say, I'm willing to stand up for this, and I'm not going to tolerate anything in my country that doesn't align with American values. I think that is smart. I think every country should do that. I think all of us should take a look at what's going on in Japan and be like, yeah, word. Japan says this is what Japan is, and this is what we stand for. And I will remind you guys, this is not about race. This is about values. And so I know that people tend to conflate it with race, but it really isn't about race. But values matter a lot. So getting people to say, these are the American values that we're going to stand up for, I love all of that. When you see somebody acting like a terrorist, then yeah, that's bad. And if they are acting like a terrorist in a super identifiable way. If reports are that these kids are of Muslim, their parents came from Muslim countries, that they themselves identify as Islamic, that they went to Turkey. Look, I've been to Turkey. So I didn't go to Turkey and get radicalized, but the easy narrative that we will see what comes of it is that that's why they went. Again, we need this stuff to come out. But when you chuck a IED, improvised explosive device, that supposedly reports are that when they disassembled it, it was real, it just didn't go off, and that it was full of some sort of incendiary cocktail. So we'll see where this pans out. But it certainly seems like you have wannabe terrorists going to an anti-Islam demonstration and throwing a bomb that just happened to not go off. So there certainly is a version of this where people got blown up, and thankfully that's not the timeline that we're on. But yeah, that's where we have to accept that this isn't clean. You've got two sides from where I'm sitting, one side acting like an absolute asshole, but seem to be peaceful. And then the other side acting like absolute assholes and being violent. And it could have gone a deadly way. So welcome to the battle. Like this battle is going to play out. And this battle being between whether the U.S. is going to tolerate Islam, just to put a real fine point on it.
Ryan, we have some super chats, right?
Yes, we have 3 super chats so far.
Yeah.
First
super
up,
chat.
Ryan Surratt says, "Hey Tom, after reading Sapolsky's Determined and being a big fan of Jocko, I find myself with 2 outlooks that don't seem to mesh. No free will and extreme ownership. How do you reconcile?"
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite things to think about. Here is the thing. I think it is self-evidently true that humans are automata. We are programmed. However, we respond to stimulus. So because we can change, I'm not saying even that it's necessarily self-guided when you really, really, really get down into it, but because we can change, we want to make sure that, it's so funny to use this language, because we can change, we want to make sure that we put ourselves in positions to change in a way that is directionally the way that we want to be moving. Now, the reality is that I can't stop myself from saying this, and I'm just an NPC like everybody else. And so I'm programmed to respond in certain ways. I've been shaped by my environment that lead me to behave in certain ways and all of that stuff. And we are all products of our time and our upbringing and yada, yada. Now, having said all of that, the only way to live your life that is useful is to act as if you have free will. So even though you almost certainly do not, it doesn't make sense to sit on your hands and say, well, I don't have free will, so I'm just going to sit here. I think it is far better to seek out the things that will change you in a high utility direction. So the reconciliation for me is that it does not feel like I lack free will. And given that it does not feel like I lack free will, then I'm just going to lean into that. And so the idea of extreme ownership is so effective, even if it is simply parsing the world into those that are hardwired and had the experience such that they respond to that idea. Well, it is what it is. It is a high utility idea. And so I rush towards it. And if you happen to be lucky enough to be one of the people that will take to that idea, then I highly encourage you to rush towards it. Now, as I've gotten older, I have shifted from anybody can and will change. They just need to hear the right sequence of words and get the right sort of visceral feedback. And the reality is that does not appear to be the case. Life has taught me over and over and over that some people really are limited by their programming. And just like I'm never going to beat an East African in a marathon, there's just some things that are biological. It just is what it is. And so 50% of you is hardwired and there's not much you're going to be able to do about it, but 50% is malleable. And I encourage you to wrap yourself in a frame of reference that tells you to make use of all of that malleability.
Next up, Matt Fillingsness 5523 with a $50 super chat.
Damn, let's go.
Finally made it to alive.
Let's go.
Just looking to give a
chat.
shout out and appreciation for the content and mental framing.
Man, thank you. 50 bones just to say thank you essentially is incredible.
Matt, you the man. Appreciate
No joke. I'm honored.
And then last one is from Sequoia Hall 1695.
Yeah. Super chat.
The draft, SAVE Act, etc. are all just distraction from the Epstein files. Another
Bro.
cover-up war. Are you feeding the cover-up or keeping the eye on what could bring true change? By the way, no draft till after National Guard is activated.
Let's go, Sequoia. Let's go. Noah can count on you.
If you look at the graph that shows, I think it's search volume of the Epstein files, it's like Trump launches attack on Iran and then like Epstein search volume. There it is, baby. There it is. Isn't that wild? You can see people trying. They're trying, Drew.
We bomb
you
here.
See those little spikes.
It's
like, come on, guys. Come on. Yep. Humans are, hey, back to the you have no free will. Humans are predictable. So we are going to go with the thing that is more interesting, more intriguing. And so I will give the Epstein files has had legs, man. Like it has taken a lot to get that to go down in interest. A lot. But it has.
Never forget, guys. Never forget.
Yeah. And keep prosecuting, by the way.
Let's jump to AI. AI has been taking over the world in a bunch of different places, but I think what is happening lately with the Claude debacle of Department of War, and now we just seen that somebody resigned at OpenAI, the line between AI, robotics, and war is starting to collide a lot more than we are more comfortable admitting. So this is from Caitlin Kalinowski. I resigned from OpenAI. I care deeply about the robotics team and the work we built together. This wasn't an easy call. AI has an important role in national security, but surveillance of Americans without judicial oversight and lethal autonomy without American authorization are lines that deserved more deliberation than they got. This was about principle, not people. I have deep respect for Sam and the team, and I'm proud of what we built together. So a bunch of CEOs last week said it. Get out your feelings. This is the military. We're not going to let some guys from Silicon Valley dictate it. But when are we going to have this conversation? Because I feel like it keeps getting pushed and more people are leaving. Contracts are being voided.
You're not going to have this conversation.
No input at all.
Drew,
this is what it is.
Drew. Here is the terrifying reality. Because I don't want people to think that explaining something means that you're happy about it or that you like it. But the reality is, in Los Alamos, we had to make a decision. If we do this nuclear test, it may light the atmosphere on fire and devour every living thing and just completely terminate life. We don't know. There is a non-zero chance that that will happen. And they did it anyway. So I don't have a clear example. Humans will develop any technology that promises an advantage. There has never been a technology in all of human history that promised a bigger advantage than AI. And truly, if we don't, China will. And I know that feels like that offers no solace. I'm not trying to soothe people. I'm merely trying to tell you how the human animal works. And so this is why people go, is it possible that we've never heard from an alien civilization because there was a great filter and evolutionary creatures, which literally, remember, we evolved to go, oh, you have cells I would like. I'm going to come kill you and take those cells and use them for myself. That's what humans do. We eat other animals so that we may have their cellular structure. Okay, so like people need to come to grips with how bloody in tooth and claw evolution really is. And so we have evolved to say, like, here, let's make everybody real uncomfortable. What is one of the pieces of property that people have gone to war for over time? That's right, women. So they will go kill all the men and take the women so that they can reproduce. Like, bro, when you realize that humans will do that, it's like there are parasites in this world that will go in, like there's this fungus, I think, or a worm that goes and like embeds itself in a wasp, makes the wasp like go to water, and then the larva from that worm eat the wasp while it's still living, so that it can like reproduce in the water and all that stuff. Like, dude, nature does not give a fuck. It will just do its thing. So humans at least have some moral check in their programming, but we are going to develop AI. No matter how many safety people, we, the population, no matter how many safety people bounce out, if America goes, listen, we just can't do this. We can't be a part of it. And like we come together and we all just say, nope, maybe Tom's right. Maybe someone's going to do it, but it's not going to be us. Cool. Maybe we can count on China to say the same thing. You really think you can stop the Ted Kaczynskis of the world? Like, bro, let's say you're a Ted Kaczynski psychopath and North Korea reaches out to you and goes, you're going to need way more funding than you're going to be able to get. So why don't you come on over and build it for us? It will happen.
Ipso facto to that. It's one of those things where we see the negative ramifications of AI, but we just can't help ourselves. It's just like, yeah, let's a little bit more. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. A little bit more jobs. A little bit more, like, yeah.
It is too powerful. And so, yeah, I mean, God, how much do we want to derail on this? When you look at evolution, lineages die off all the time. And right now, humans are preparing themselves to be a midwife for a synthetic species. That is almost certainly true. And now, will humans remain and they don't die off and we do colonize the stars? Maybe. It's kind of a cool way to think about it, that we get off Earth and it's not just us and there's us and synthetic
the midwife
things,
thing,
but
like, I feel like when AI gets to that level of control, I'm kind of with Bustamante. I feel like they'll be like, this society is weird. We're just going to go and beep and boop and do stuff over here.
Yeah, possible. Maybe they leave us alone and then maybe things get better. Maybe it's like, okay, we got the face hugger of AI and it fucking pumps the little aliens into our gullet and then it bursts out of the chest of a few people and we're like, yo, that was terrifying, but it is what it is. And now the rest of us, like the little alien creature runs off and starts colonizing places far beyond and leaves us alone, and we rebuild and we take the line out of Dune and we just go, no one shall make an AI in the likeness of a human mind. And we're just like, nope, no more of that. That game is over. Cool. Whatever, but the technology is going to come into existence, and then we have to see what ends up happening to humans. And I think that it's really going to be, ultimately spectacular. I think it is going to be terrifying and bumpy, and I certainly understand anybody that's like, I'd just rather it didn't exist. But the reality is that the things that it lets you, intelligence is the single most profound, like, thing in the universe. It's incredible. No one wants to see a bunch of lifeless rocks. What we cherish is consciousness. And so if AI can achieve that kind of state, it'd be incredible.
Well, back into the reality of what's actually happening on the ground of AI. Now, finance jobs seem to be the next sector that AI is eating. This is a retweet from Peter St. Ange, friend of the show. He was on here. Finance and insurance jobs openings fell 117,000 in December to 134,000, the lowest level since February 2012. Oof. So you can see this graph. It seems pretty low, and that's right over the back of the recession, the Great Recession.
Yeah.
So one sector after another, and then we have this economic pressure on the stock market. It seems like this house of cards is starting to teeter when it comes to AI and layoffs.
Here's a way that I think everybody should think about AI and the jobs market. Right now, we have no reason to believe that this isn't going to be just a reconfiguration. Every time we've gone through one of these technological changes, on a long enough timeline, the technology ends up creating more jobs than it destroys. So you had the Industrial Revolution, you had the electrification, you had the great internetification. All of those revolutions caused massive disruptions to the job markets. Remember, the internet one, the one that ironically feels the most invisible to us because we're just in the middle of it, the deaths of despair on the back of that from people that just could not get trained up to exist in this world. They were too far down the old path. The number of those deaths is so high that it has lowered the average life expectancy of the nation as a whole, okay? So it is an absolute catastrophe, but you end up getting through it, and kids that grow up in the internet era, they end up building incredible things. And we are, look, there are downsides as well, don't get me wrong, but we are marching forwards, making incredible progress, doing incredible things. And now we're seeing this new disruption. Now, I think that this time is going to be different. But I have a rule in my life that says anytime you say the magical phrase, this time is going to be different, just assume you're wrong. So I simultaneously believe it's true and recognize the foolishness that history has shown over and over and over of people that say this time is going to be different. So right now, I am saying, okay, I'm living in this moment. I can see what the real impacts of this moment are. And right now, the reality is you're not going to get replaced by AI. You are going to get replaced by a human using AI. So I'm using AI as much as I can, and it has been a boon to every aspect of my life. Now, like everything, there are people that have a drug-addled quality or relationship with it, and so they're getting addicted to it and they're using it in negative ways. I am not. I'm saying, okay, here are the goals that I'm trying to achieve. I don't want this to turn me to a pair of hands. I want to understand why it's doing what it's doing. I want it to help me map cause and effect. I want it to help me think up from first principles so that I understand it myself, so I don't need an output from that to be able to do something, that I can actually understand the thing, okay? So how you force yourself to interact with it is going to be a large part of this. Now, on a long enough timeline, does this usher in an age of abundance, an age of high income, as Elon Musk has said? Probably, unless it asymptotes from an intelligence perspective, or we just cannot get our shit together enough to get energy going in appropriate amounts. I think that this just keeps going. But this is going to play out over a longer time period than any of us want, certainly longer than I want, or even some days longer than I predict. But that's just the way that things tend to go. They tend to take longer than you think, not be quite as cool as you think. And so in my more sober moments, I go, okay, I've probably got a transition that ranges somewhere between 3 and 7 years where I still recognize the world. It still seems reasonable. And that gives us all time to adjust to whatever's going to come on the other side. Now, AI is the first technology that just continues to surprise me day after day after day with its rate of doubling. So take that with a grain of salt. But that is the way I think right now to think about it. Use AI, deploy it in your life. Don't get so doomered that you're only looking at the dark side of what could happen. I think spending some time there is warranted, but spending all of your time there is not wise. And so even if I'm right in my most aggressive prognostications and 3 years from now, capitalism just doesn't exist, right now, today, it does. Right now, today, it matters. Right now, today, having a job is important. And right now, today, the way to keep your job is to be the one that uses AI the most effectively. So look at all of this stuff not as like, oh God, my head is on the chopping block. Look at it as the people who are being willfully ignoring AI, not finding a way to use it in their jobs. They're going to be the ones replaced by people using AI. So you have the life raft that you need, which is to master AI.
Man, we really need to get this Ipso Facto button. You cooking today, bro.
There it is.
AI has been making tremendous breakthroughs, though. I thought this was like satire. I was like, oh, this is a Babylon Bee article. This is not real. But just then, there's a petri dish of human brain cells grown on a microchip has learned to play Doom. I wish like that's a full sentence. That is it. And this is like footage of the gameplay that happened like below here. You can actually see that they're taking real neuron gameplay and they just laid it on a microchip.
Bro, this is so crazy. Believe it or not, boys and girls, that statement is true. A petri dish of human brain cells grown in a microchip has learned to play a video game. Welcome to the era of biological computing. Things are going to get wild. Developers can now literally write code to living neurons via the cloud. Okay, there's 2 stories that have dropped recently that most people are treating as a novelty, but they're not realizing that when these 2 things are combined, it tells you the direction of travel that we're going. When you put them together, they point to a transformation that I'm not sure, it is singularity-like in that it will be very difficult for us to predict on the other side of this. The first story is that scientists at Princeton and Cambridge have spent years mapping every single neuron in an adult fruit fly. Okay, so they've mapped a fly's brain. It's nearly 140,000 neurons, 50 million connections. They've loaded the entire wiring diagram into a computer simulation. Then they simply fed this simulated brain sensory inputs. So there's no separate behavioral training, okay? It is just architecture. So there's no reinforcement learning applied to the outcomes. It's just the structure. And the simulation correctly enacted the real fly's brain's motor responses, including the circuits that control walking, with no one telling it what walking was supposed to look like. The lead researcher's quote says it all. One fly had to be sacrificed for this experiment, but that fly will now live forever in a simulation. Now, I hope part of you just got excited, and I hope part of you just became terrified. There's actually an anime about this. Ryan, can I count on you to remember? Regan. Oh, God, what's it called?
I don't know that one.
Oh, somebody. Oh, chat, don't fail me.
Share the screen.
P something. It starts with a P. God damn it. It's so good. It's all about how, it's really going to bother me. It's all about how if a consciousness can be mirrored inside of a simulation, can it suffer? Can it be trapped? Can it be put in some sort of endless loop that is like being punished forever, for all of eternity? It is really, really interesting. Okay, with that, story 2. You've got an Australian company called Cortical Labs. They took 200,000 living human brain cells. 200,000 living human brain cells. They were grown from adult skin, placed on a silicon chip, and then they built what they call the world's first code deployable biological computer. Okay? An independent developer with zero neuroscience background used their Python API to pipe Doom's video feed into electrical signals, sent those signals directly into the neurons, and in under a week, the cells were navigating levels, targeting enemies, firing weapons, all in real time. Now, to give you a sense of the insane rate of progress here, they had done something similar in the past with the game Pong. If you're young, you may not remember what that is. A very simplistic game. And it took them 18 months. Doom, a far more complicated game, took only 1 week. Things are speeding up dramatically. Now, for anyone worried about the energy consumption of AI, I've got some good news. The energy economics of slapping brain matter onto computer chips is insane. A full rack of these bad boys draws just 850 to 1,000 watts combined. The human brain runs on just 20 watts, but a single GPU cluster training a large language model can burn through megawatts. Biological compute is wildly more efficient. And just as a reminder, it's already here. This is not some insane thing way down the road. It's already here. And the investor list reflects exactly who's taking this seriously. You've got Horizons Ventures, Blackbird, and reportedly In-Q-Tel, which is the CIA's venture arm. Now, I want to be clear, the In-Q-Tel thing is unconfirmed, so that may require a tinfoil hat. We'll see where that goes over time. Cortical Labs is now selling access through a cloud platform that they're calling Wetware as a Service. Developers deploy code to living neurons remotely. You don't need a lab. And it's priced like a software subscription. This is so insane. Now, when you put it all together, on one side, you've got proof. You can load a complete biological brain map into a computer and have it predict behavior from structure alone. And on the other side, you have proof that living human neurons on a chip will learn in real time, drawing on 4 billion years of biological optimization that so far no silicon chip has been able to replicate. Synthetic brains, man, they are coming to a server rack near you. AWS is about to get a second wind, boys and girls. Things are going to get nuts. People are going to get so weird with what they, how they respond to this. And honestly, understandably so. There are so many moral implications of what's going on with this. We're talking about growing brains and strapping them into data centers, man. Buddy, this one's going to be one for the ages.
That fruit fly one is crazy to me.
Yeah.
That it's just walking around, and does it know that it's in a simulation, and is it just a copy of it? And we were talking about this in Slack. Me, Press, and Ed got into like a rabbit hole of like what actually is consciousness, and how do we map consciousness? And Ed was like, well, I think it already is consciousness. And I'm like, I think the question now is going to be, what is the definition of consciousness? Just like, what is the definition of truth? It became, oh, it's easy. But then you take away religious standards. Oh, it's easy. And then you take away society standards, and then it becomes like this like mushy, like sliding scale. And I think consciousness is going to be the same thing. So the fact that they could do that with fruit flies, my conspiracy theory is every time government or scientists do something to an animal, they immediately do it to humans in the military. Like, that's the pipeline. So we cloned a goat, never heard about goat cloning again. They've been cloning people. I know, I just can't prove it yet. Same thing with this fruit fly. They got the fruit flies like brain mapped. What's to stop them from like stealing like a terrorist somewhere, mapping his consciousness in a box and saying, you're going to live here forever unless you give us the secrets. And then they kind of like torture him in that way. Like it's perpetual torture, even though his real body's not tortured. He's somewhere else, but we mapped your body into the make-believe land to interrogate you there. I might actually write that. That's a good pilot. That's a good actual. I conspiracy myself.
He's like, hold on.
Let me write that
Cut
down.
that part out.
Oh no, I might write that down. But you know what I'm saying? That there is this, we're going back to moral thing again, where it's AI is now becoming more and more powerful, and there's starting to be so many applications. It's like, wait a second, this thing is just going in different directions. Like at the same time, we're taking over fruit flies, we're firing finance bros. College grads can't find a job, but now grown brain cells can play Doom by themselves. It just seems like everything is happening at the same time, and it's like my head's on a swivel. Like that's how I can describe this last segment.
Yes. Now, to answer your first question, does the fruit fly know that it's in a simulation? Do you know you're in a simulation, Drew?
I was waiting for you to bring that
Come
back.
on. So it's like, it's very possible. And while I'll admit, it's not that I have new information, it's that I've sat with the old information for long enough now. I've realized just in the back of my mind now, I believe I'm in a simulation. It's crazy. Now, I don't know that that's accurate, obviously, but that just slowly became my worldview. Yeah. And by the way, the anime that I was trying to think of is called Pantheon, which is absolutely fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
It's fantastic.
It's just interesting how we're progressing at such a rapid pace.
Yeah.
And it was just last year we were talking about, oh, look, Will Smith's eating spaghetti. And now we're seeing breakthroughs across. And as soon as quantum gets here, those breakthroughs will then just be in hours as opposed to days.
Quantum's a whole nother thing. Right now, that's still a bit mysterious as to how long that's going to take and what it will actually be good for. But there was a headline that came out. I didn't report on it. I think I may have grabbed it. We never covered it. That said, basically, a new thing happened in quantum computing that proves, and I quote, that we live in a multiverse. Now, I did not fact check that, so take that as just pop sci for now, but a pretty interesting headline.
I'm trying to see how fast I can pull up an X. Allegedly, to be determined again, we haven't fact checked this. Google's quantum chip solved in 5 minutes, a problem that would have taken 10 septillion years. Physicists say it proved we live in a multiverse. Yeah,
so we'll see. Oftentimes, the physicist that they're quoting for stuff like that is not exactly somebody who's prominent. So it's like a fringe guy that got his, diploma from Phoenix University. But yeah,
that's crazy. We had another super chat came in, right?
Yeah. Yes, we have two.
Super chat.
Well, technically three. One's combined into two separate ones, so I'll read it as one.
Let's do it.
But first up is Michael Vander Galian. What AI is your favorite right now, and how do you use it? You're talking regularly about Claude, but I find Gemini to be better at writing. Claude very good at coding, I understand. How do you use different AIs?
I use Claude. Don't ever mention Gemini to me again. I have so much beef with Gemini. Gemini refuses to even acknowledge certain topics. I tried to write a deep dive that involved Epstein. It wouldn't even tell me that Epstein was a reason that it stopped talking to me. Just all of a sudden, it just was like, I can't help you with that. I was so caught off guard. Like we were in the middle of like working on the research for a deep dive. And then it was just like, I had asked like multiple things in one thing. So I actually didn't know what it was responding to. It's just like, I can't help you with that. And I was like, what? Can't help me with what? And it wouldn't tell me. So it wouldn't even say, bro, I don't talk about Epstein. I think there's like too much like random stuff going on about it. So I just don't even talk about it until like the facts get laid out. That I still would have been annoyed, but at least I would have understood. But it was just like gaslighting me off the jump. So no, fuck Gemini. Until they sort themselves out from what are you optimizing your AI for? AI should be optimized for truth. Now, my long time, like the person that I was like, word, like they get it. I've now forgotten his name, Elon Musk. So he's dead to me. No, not quite. But he says, look, I'm optimizing Grok for truth. And then he posted something that was entirely subjective where he asked all the different AI, should the US have attacked Iran or bombed Iran? I forget which word. And Grok was the only one that said yes, and all the other ones said no. And he said, see, Grok is optimized for truth. And I was like, bitch, what? Like, how is that truth? That is a thing that you want people to debate. That's the very definition of subjective, and we need to decide as a culture whether we think that that actually is the thing that we need to be doing. So to make out like because you agree with it that it's true, like what the fuck? Like this is supposed to be the guy that's the biggest champion of free speech is about letting people say things that you absolutely hate. The pursuit of truth is the acknowledgement that things that you believe you may find out like objectively aren't true, or by the way, aren't even like in the realm of truth. They're in the realm of perception and opinion. So it's like, God damn. So understand you are going to be manipulated by what AI won't say. So that is going to be wild, man. It is going to be wild. And if we are not careful, we will get sucked into a deep, dark vortex of what people want us to believe instead of thinking up from first principles, instead of going, okay, where can I start interfacing with what I know to be true? And people just aren't doing that, man. They aren't doing that. This is, it's going to be a crazy time. So be careful. You're being spun at all times, even by your AI. Okay, how do I use it? I use it primarily for assessing data. So we use it a lot in our social media, trying to figure out what the content is there. I use it to help me write. So researching now has become infinitely easier. It's terrible at sentence structure. So I often have to rewrite like the actual words, but logic flows and things like that, it helps me build the logic. It will attack my arguments so that I sharpen them. It's very useful as a thought partner. I use it creatively, both to generate images, 3D assets, to streamline that pipeline dramatically on our video game. And as I take so many hundreds of pages of notes on things like Kaizen, the video game, that having AI comb through it and be like, here are the 7 ideas I think you've forgotten about that are really banger. Or like if I'm stuck on an idea and I'm like, okay, this really feels intuitively right, but I don't know how to turn this into something I can articulate consciously. It can find patterns in my own thinking that I'm having a hard time nailing down. All those things are incredibly useful. I do all of that and a lot more, but I'll stop there.
I just wanted to bring up the meme real quick because you brought up Elon, and I felt like this is a perfect time to put this in. So the Matrix, Terminator, Idiocracy, you are here.
Where they overlap. Yeah, it's a Venn diagram. It is absolutely fantastic. If you can look at your phone right now, now would be the time, or your TV if you're watching this. You are at the intersection of the Matrix, the Terminator, and Idiocracy. It's a pretty dangerous place to be.
Yes, everybody's red-pilled. Robots are literally taking over. They have Chinese crime bots doing kung fu, and Idiocracy. I think that speaks for itself. That everybody has a social media feed.
So wild. So wild.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yes. Next up is Lucy Williams, 7189. Hi, I love you both, and thank you so much for everything you do. I never miss a live. I don't understand why governments are so obsessed with immigration/babies and growing the population. With AI looming, a huge percentage of people will be on benefits. How and why would we want more mouths to feed? I don't understand why governments aren't seeing this. I'm from London. P.S. I'm aware Japan are on it.
So the reason is that right now, every economic model is predicated on growth of your population. So you'd have to completely reinvent your economic models in order to deal with the fact that populations are declining. Also, people know what they know. So somebody that had 3 siblings wants to have 4 kids, and it's just because they grew up in a family with 4 kids. It's just people are they're so captured by their own frame of reference that they just want to keep perpetuating that. Plus, disruptions of any kind are difficult emotionally, but they can also be difficult from an architecture standpoint in terms of your culture, your cities, your states, your government, all of that. So status quo is always going to be easier to deal with than wild disruption. So that's why they're obsessed with it. Should they be obsessed with it? Look, we will adjust to whatever happens. Humans became the most dominant apex predator the world has ever seen, not because we're stronger, faster, have better talons or teeth. We became the dominant apex predator via intelligence and our ability to adapt. And it's that adaptability that is our real trait. So we can go into any environment, and given that big brain of ours, we can figure out how to survive in that area. We can survive on the moon, the surface of the moon. That's crazy. So yeah, that's why. We'll be okay on the other side, but turmoil is something that humans tend to reject.
We have breaking news. I hate using Jackson Heinkel's Twitter account, but he's the only one that had the video up right now, where allegedly an Iranian official has just said if you keep messing around, oil is going to be $200 per barrel. It is expected that the governments of Muslim countries will swiftly warn the criminal United States and the savage Zionist regime against such cowardly anti-human actions.
Says the guy that killed 30,000 of his own people.
So that the flames of fire and war do not spread further. Otherwise, similar actions will occur in the region. And if you can tolerate oil prices above 200 per barrel, continue this game.
Yeah, I mean, look, we are playing a game of fuck around and find out. And I don't know if we're all about to find out because oil prices go above $200 per barrel, or if Iran is about to find out. So we'll see. I mean, to me, that's just tough talk from, you would expect it, right? In the same way that we've got plenty of pundits that talk tough. You got to talk tough for your side. You got to try to bolster the morale. You got to try to make out like you're in control. And he's not wrong that if we're not able to open the Strait of Hormuz, we are in for a world of hurt, man, that goes way beyond oil. And then also, just as a reminder, oil is energy, and energy is the foundation of everything that we do. Everything gets more expensive. So I've been very careful to remind people that there is a difference between inflation and rising prices. But the rising of oil prices is the one thing that so closely mimics inflation that no one can tell the difference, nor do they care. So inflating your currency and increasing dramatically your oil prices will have the same effect on people's inability to make ends meet.
Sheesh. Well, $200 a barrel. We'll see. Again, it's tough talk. This is just a Paris conference that just came back out. Not to break up the usual programming. I know we got to
break it up whenever we got something good.
That was interesting. Because I think this is bigger deal though, and I understand tough talk and things like that. But $200 per barrel oil, that would like break Trump. I think that would break the administration. That's like $5 oil, $5 gas prices in rural communities.
Yes.
LA, I'm walking to work, Tom. Sorry, I might be a little bit late. Like, there's no reason I'm paying $10 at the bus. Like, it's gonna be crazy. Like, that's a substantial number. That's probably the all-time high, if not the highest. So it's one of those things where it's jokey. We'll see tough talk, but if they suicide themselves and just to break up the strait for a month, that's where we would head. That's where it would head. So it's
this is why, man. Listen, Trump plays all or nothing games, and when they pay off, great. If they don't pay off, whoa! Like, now you have damaged our relationships with our allies irreparably. Like, I'm curious to see what happens. Like, let me take back. It's never going to be irreparably. Because if you can be good for their country economically, like you see Canada siding up with China, that is insane to me. But nonetheless, they'll do it if they can get an economic advantage. But the damage that we're doing to historic European allies is crazy. And if we go in and blow up the oil markets and then back out, the GCC countries, unless they're somehow advantaged from Iran being in chaos, then they're going to revolt against the US. And so this is one of those, like, did you just basically reboot the Ayatollah? Like, he was starting to sketch out, get old, you reboot him, fresh, now he's ready. Same,
30 more years
literally
of hate,
his son.
Years of hate.
Exactly. You supercharge him with anger by killing like half the people that he knows and loves. And now he's in charge and just like, has, like, let's say that he's got the will of even 30 or 35% of the people. Bro, you can dominate the other people if you're just willing to kill more of them, which they've obviously shown that they are. And that would just be an epically terrible outcome. And now you're going to have to like keep bombing their nuclear facilities because if that's really what this is about, like, let's play this out. Trump goes out of office because he fucks all this up. And then you get somebody, Democrat, that's like, no. We not only do we not play around with that, like, we love these guys. So like, we just want to see Iran get back on their feet, you know, like Obama released funds and stuff like that. And they start doing that. And Iran is then getting back up on its feet, but it's like more aggressive. And so it's like, hey, we are nakedly just building this nuclear program. And so then Israel goes, this is all speculation. I don't want anybody to think that this is like some higher likelihood of coming out, but this is a pretty plausible scenario. US is not going to help Israel. So then Israel's like, fuck it. We're going to drop some tactical nukes to get rid of this program because we don't have the bunker busters and we can't let them get it. And so that then kicks off like the whole world freaks out, which they absolutely would. Remember, nobody has used a nuke offensively since we bombed Japan. So if they were, big if, but if they were to do that because America pulls out, ooh, buddy.
Yeah. And they can't beat that allegation. That's millions of people. That's humanitarian aid crisis.
Well,
even people
so
on the side.
it's not going to be giant mushroom cloud the way that you're thinking.
Oh, okay.
It would be, they would be doing something so that they could rip a deep enough hole in the ground to actually destroy the facilities. And so, but it would be nuclear. And so it's like, it would take out a ton of people. It just is not going to be like Hiroshima or Nagasaki where you're taking out, 280,000 or something like that. Yeah. It's going to be more like a terrifying, like the Fordow bombs on steroids, but still within the realm. But it's nuclear, so it's got nuclear fallout and all that shit. And so,
the ground is ruined.
Also, you also cross a line that people are just not going to tolerate. So that's one of those. I'm sure they'll have war gamed out like what the global response is, and I have not. So I honestly don't know who comes in where. But I imagine China, Russia coming pretty hot. The U.S. at that point would be opposed to it theoretically. Yeah, we can't. So it's like we'll come in hot. So it's like be wild.
Yeah. All right. Sorry. Back to super chats.
All good. Big Diggler says, pushing back on Tom's trope of most adults can't update foundational beliefs, most can with sufficient pain and suffering. Consider the iconic Chinatown line where Hudson tells Nick, I guess his name's Nick in it, at right time / place, we'd do anything.
Yeah, so I will say this. Pain and suffering is the one thing that causes people to rebound. You are correct. However, I will point you at China, and you can starve 45 million people to death and they don't do shit about it. So it doesn't always work, much to my dismay. And man, I hope you're right. I hope that over time I realize that no, it really isn't that most won't change. We just hadn't found the right sequence of words or whatever. But life has taught me a very painful lesson after spending an inordinate amount of time trying to help people adopt a frame of reference that will help them achieve their own goals, only to watch the vast majority. I'll peg it at 98%, just a swag, but 98% of the people that I have encountered, they don't sustain the change. So yeah, I'd love to be wrong. That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. Some people can, by the way, and I hold out hope for each and every one of them. And hopefully you guys are all in the 2%. But nonetheless.
Bulletproof Monk, 1998, says, Eric Weinstein says simulation theory just pushes the mystery back a level. Mm-hmm. If we're simulated, what physics governs the simulator's universe?
Yep.
And what real evidence would distinguish a simulation from simply incomplete physics?
Yep. That is a phenomenal point. So I would love to sit down with Eric and ask him the question that was the tipping point for me, which is if the universe is non-local, what, like, without saying spinner bundles, what mental model is he using for that? The universe only renders if you look at it. Like, you've got to explain. Like, that's not just I don't understand physics. That is the metaphor that we use doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense structurally. So every time I ask Eric a question like that, he kind of hand waves away that part, and I've never been able to get him to give me a satisfying answer. Now, part of that is my intellect just is not able to handle the math, and if the math is the only way to accurately answer the question, then it's like you're just never going to be able to have that conversation with me in a satisfying manner. But yeah, the answer has always been some variation of spinner bundles and things like that.
You ever seen that Disney movie, Coco?
Coco?
Yeah.
I've heard of it, but I haven't. Oh, wait.
Yeah, this one was the Mexican Day of the
Dead. Yeah, I have.
And how you, like, if you don't remember your family members, they disappear. That's what it makes me think of. Yeah. Like, if you don't remember them, they then, like, cease to exist. It's like maybe the universe works. It's really crazy how we get to these philosophical, scientific breakthroughs that are like, oh my gosh, if the universe isn't locally real. And then we have like these old traditions that kind of say the same thing in a different way. And I feel like there's some truth in the middle of those two. Like I do feel like it's something that is scientific, but it might have been changed and passed down and, the sun is a god type translation, and it became something else versus what we are now seeing now that we have measurements and scientific like tools and things like that.
It makes sense to me because if you've got humans coded in a certain way that they're going to be parsing based on the physics of the way they're coded, based on the physics of the way the universe works. So to your point, they'll use different language, but they'll be trying to explain the same thing because it is the same thing. And so, for instance, if there is a predictable experience that you have when you take psilocybin, for instance, and I don't know how much of the stuff that I've read is like really proven, but for instance, if what I think it was psilocybin, but certainly a form of what are that class of mushrooms called? Psychedelics. So a certain type of psychedelic, what you find is that it's actually it is blocking the things that normally shut things out versus like causing you to create something new. It basically just stops you from suppressing other things. And this is the same thing that they found with these magnetic guns. So they can shoot, I forget, transcranial magnetic stimulation. There we go. So transcranial magnetic stimulation. They put this magnet gun on your head and they shoot it, and it turns off a region of your brain. It doesn't like activate something new. So it shuts down the part that's like stopping you from being able to draw, for instance. So you can increase somebody's ability to draw accurately by like 10x. I mean, it's something crazy. They were running this study. It was wild. And the fact that you shut something down instead of turning something on just seems impossible to believe. But that really does seem to be what's going on. So the brain is like clamping down. And so then some people go, consciousness is beamed into the brain. It's not arising from within the brain. And so what you're doing is making it so that more like types of consciousness, I guess, are like coming in, or more elements of the qualia of consciousness are coming into your brain. But the takeaway for me on that is still, if the you I think of as you is tied to your biology, whether it's just it receives you in a specific way, once I divorce you from your biology, you would inherently change. And that's a part where, much like Eric is pointing out, that if you believe in simulation theory, you're just pushing it. Like, you still have to go then explain the physics in that universe, which is absolutely true. If you end up in heaven, well, then I'm like, but the you that I'm used to interfacing is wildly impacted by your hormones, for instance. So are you saying that you still have biology in heaven? Like, and then is it just exactly the same? And then in which case heaven is just this? But again, like, that's where it all starts to break down, where it's nonsensical. Whereas for me, the thought of, people saying, oh, when you're dying, you like leave your body and all this stuff. I'm like, sure. Like, if there is a very predictable experience that the body goes through as it shuts down, just like when I pinch you, I don't think, oh, the way that you experience being pinched is wildly different than the way that I experience it. We're going to have universal experiences as our brains are being starved of oxygen. Like that, there would be recognizable patterns, and that makes sense. That there's recognizable patterns when we each take the same drug. That makes sense. What doesn't make sense is that I can divorce you from all that biology and you're somehow still the same.
Yeah. There's some pushback about the locally real thing. Can we do Brutus Lugo super chat?
Brutus Lugo 3969 says, Tom, it's not true that the universe only renders when we look at it. Where are you getting this from?
I'm getting it from the Nobel Prize that was won for the 3 scientists that proved experimentally that the universe is not locally real, that decisions can be made going backwards in time instantaneously based on a measurement that you put literally, let's say, 100 million years later. So, don't know what you do with that one. You're going to have to invalidate a Nobel Prize.
The Science Spark says you're misinterpreting the study because observer does not equal consciousness in physics.
I didn't say consciousness.
Or conscious, or like, so I guess
I said it doesn't render if you don't look at it. Now, if you want to say that look at it is too colloquial. If you want to say that render is too colloquial, fair. I will say that it doesn't decide what happened until you measure it. So the double slit experiment, this is real. The double slit experiment is that if I have two slits and I shoot photons through those slits, then if I'm not measuring it, you get on the back wall, you get an interference pattern as you would expect from a wave. If, however, you put up a particle detector, then all of a sudden it goes through as if it went through one slit or the other. Deal with that, motherfucker. And so then it's like you can retroactively make a determination about that by measuring something like down in the future and then checking to see if it updates appropriately back in time. And you'll have to talk to a physicist for them to be able to explain how that's causative, but they all stand 10 toes down that you were causing the measurement back in time to happen according to what you did or didn't do at that moment far deeper in the stack. So
quantum.
Yes, I'm using Cliff Notes about science. Are you doing anything else? I doubt it.
All right, we got one more super chat from RJ Johnson.
And by the way, hold on.
Oh, yeah.
Just so we can wrap this. If y'all motherfuckers have the explanation, just give it. Instead of heckling and saying I don't understand it, just say succinctly what the answer is. I always want to update my thinking. So if I've got something wrong, I don't need to be right. I need to get to the right answer.
Groundbreaking experiment proving that quantum entanglement is real. What is quantum entanglement? It is a phenomenon where two or more particles become linked so that measuring the state of one instantly determines the state of the other.
Instantly determines. Not instantly verifies, instantly determines. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. By all means, keep going. But you've already gotten to the
that's the part. That's the
Yes. You are retroactively determining something in the past. What?
And in the past, because the light year difference of the two things that they're observing.
You can across the entire universe measure one and determine the state of the other. How? If information can't travel faster than light, how are you doing that?
So the solution, these are the actual experiments. John Clauser, he built an apparatus that emitted pairs of entangled photons, showing they violated Bell inequalities, supporting quantum mechanics over hidden variables. Alan Aspect refined the experiment by creating a setup that could switch detector settings after a particle was emitted, closing a major loophole, ensuring no hidden signals could communicate faster than light. And then Anton Zellinger demonstrated through his work on entangled states a phenomenon called quantum teleportation, allowing information to be transferred over distances. And this is the instant part I think you're leading to, that can be done without delay or buffer.
Read the Why It Matters.
Their experiments prove that quantum mechanics is fundamental, opening the door for new technologies like quantum computing, quantum cryptography,
hoping that moved forward the hypothesis. So anyway, this is one of those things where if somebody has like a succinct breakdown of what I'm missing, man, I will take it. But just saying that somehow in giving you a brief description that I have missed the point somehow is not useful. So anyway,
I'm looking. Yeah, I don't see any more pushback. If you have more pushback, drop it in the chat.
People have emotional pushback. That's the problem, because when something collides with your worldview and you can't explain it, then you are left with, I'm mad and I don't know why I'm mad. So, and to be clear, I don't understand the physics. So I want to be abundantly clear. I am operating from metaphor. So I am not like, I am building a metaphor, which I have confessed over and over and over. I am building a metaphor based on the physics, at least the amount that I can build a mental model for. But that I do not assume that my metaphor is accurate because I'm not building the argument from the mathematics. So I'll need somebody to show me exactly what it is that they think that I'm missing. Anyway, this is bad TV.
No, we're into it. Autumn Lynn says she loves this type of stuff, so we're doing it for her. Okay, we have one more, right?
Yeah.
The funny thing is, I do too. And if you guys rewarded me with the numbers, I would talk about this stuff until the end of time. I would love to do a deep dive on physics. It would tank. So anyway.
Awesome. Okay. The last super chat is from RJ Johnson, 2026.
Wait a second. That's $100 boy. Thank you, RJ.
Oh,
Shout out to RJ.
let's go, RJ.
Thank you,
RJ.
RJ. Support. Friend of the show.
You're asking the wrong question. Not, are we living in a simulation? Instead, does assuming we live in a simulation lead to a more coherent and mind-yielding greater fulfillment, wholeness, and feeling of success? My PhD research identifies 7 levels of consciousness.
Very interesting. So I agree with you that the frame of reference that you hold is going to have a material impact on the quality of your life. For me, believing that this is a simulation is actually way more interesting to me because, unlike you, I do not have a God that I can believe in, which would be
He'll take you on time.
That's very sweet.
Come on.
That would be certainly a very warm. Having lived there in the past, I understand how wonderful it is. And whether it ends up being accurate or not, I can only assume that it's not because I don't understand the physics. Nobody does. So I expect upon death, either it all just goes dark or I'm like, whoa, this is not at all what I was expecting. Either one of those seems perfectly fine. But living in life right now is made richer and more fascinating given what we're going through technologically with the backdrop that this is a simulation. Now, again, it's metaphor. I'm well aware of that. But man, especially with everything that's going on with AI, with everything I'm doing in game development, God, as a metaphor, is it really consistent?
Somebody put in the chat, I forgot who, that said simulation theory is a religion for atheists. Like,
Yeah.
do you believe that there is that sect of people who, while they deny the existence of God, they run full-heartedly into the existence of science to explain everything and make it make sense, even taking leaps of faith and connecting dots that might not necessarily
But why
be there?
do I hear like a mad about it?
No. I'm just saying,
Like
is
it's a
there
dig, not coming from you,
Yeah.
from people that say that as if they diminish it in some way. And it's like, well, I'm not going to diminish somebody that believes that there's a dude up in heaven somewhere, a metaphysical realm, and that he sent his only son to die and all that. Yeah, like cool. If I get the high utility of that. But at the same time, and I don't think of it as religious, but it definitely plugs into that sense of awe and wonder. And so I've found a thing that gives me that gives me like, whoa, I do not understand the universe. It is way bigger than me. It is wonderful and awe-inspiring and terrifying at the same time and just incredibly fascinating. And I can engage in some way with the way that it's built by looking at the science of all this, in thinking about like, where could this go and what does that mean and what are the implications, and the same sense of expansion that other people get, I get. Now, if we're colliding from a values perspective and they want swords and sandals and fucking loincloth and they want a world that feels somehow grounded and more real, and they feel me like flying off into outer space and technology and brain-computer interfaces, and they just, from an aesthetic, from an emotional standpoint, that is just anathema to who they are as a human, and they have a very negative reaction to my worldview, that I understand. Collisions of values are dangerous, to be quite frank. So I get that that's where some people are going to fall on the issue, but do not be surprised as technology changes the world more and more and more, that people don't really start leaning into that. Just as like, imagine the first time that humans saw a total eclipse.
Yeah.
Would they be like, oh, I told you this was real. He's there, he's mad. And so like, you can expect that you're going to get a lot of that as AI like becomes conscious or it perceived as conscious. And honestly, I think the right question isn't, is it conscious or not? It is, does it matter when you can't tell the difference? Yeah. So I think that'll be one of the biggest questions of our time.
Yeah. And then we had another super chat slide in at the buzzer.
Yes, Brutus Lugo, 3969. Get Sean Carroll on the podcast to explain the physics and conclusions of Elaine Aspect, John Clauser, and Anton Zellinger.
Nope.
Eric.
But thank you for the super chat. So here is a reality that we all have to face. YouTube works in a certain way. Everybody working here wants to get paid. And so we have to do the things that fall into both what I believe to be true and useful and what enough of you want to see that we can run a business. And I only look at things that overlap. You're never going to find me spiraling into saying shit that I don't believe is true and useful. I'd shut the company down first, but you're also not going to find me chasing like the things that I find utterly interesting that just nobody cares about. So for instance, when I first started live streaming, I was live streaming gaming. And man, shout out to the like 107 people that were rocking with me. But the second, that was like after 6 months, the second that we went to things that were more in line with what the world wants from me, like our numbers quintupled. So there's a reality to be faced, boys and girls. So there it is.
Cool. That's it.
Cool.
Yep.
All right.
Oh, damn. It's that time.
It is that time. That's all I got.
All right. Well, guys, happy Monday. May this be an incredible week for you. And we will see you all on Wednesday. Take care. Peace.